All right, good morning, everybody. This is the Fantasy Sports Boss. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is now Thursday, December 28th, 2023. Got a lot to get to today. For today's program, the highlight of the program is going to be the all-value team selection. So I put together a roster, quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends, who made up the best value plays for 2023 fantasy football as the season gets set to wind down. As this is the championship week for the majority of leagues. And we're also going to preview the Cleveland Browns New York Jets game tonight, and also some of the other news of the day, and including Amari Cooper's status, which is now looking like it's going to be up in the air. He's got a heel injury. Diana Rossini, who's pretty keyed in on things, around the NFL, says that it's going to probably be a game time call. They're going to work out Cooper, and the amazing thing is he's coming off arguably the best performance of anybody at any position this season. Last week, over 200 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, just, unbelievable blockbuster numbers. But now he's going to have to go through warm-ups to see if he can go against this top-flight Jets secondary with Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. Not an easy assignment. That drops him to wide receiver 2 territory as opposed to a wide receiver 1 against most teams with Joe Flacco at quarterback. So we're going to preview that game shortly. I wanted to start off today again with the Russell Wilson nonsense fiasco, whatever you want to call it, because it's nothing short of that. And now, you put out of your mind however you feel about Russell Wilson. I know he's been a very polarizing player in the NFL. He comes across as a phony, not the most likable guy, to say the least, right? He gets a lot of guff, some of it deserved. He's kind of cringeworthy too when he talks to the media. But the fact of the matter is, Russell Wilson has been a really good player in this league for a long time, and he has won a Super Bowl. It should have been 2. Obviously, we know what happened against the New England Patriots there with that interception at the 1-yard line. But still, this is a accomplished veteran player who is in the midst of a comeback season. 26 touchdown passes, 8 interceptions, 3 rushing scores. His numbers are just as good as Patrick Mahomes this season, and had the Broncos, albeit it's a small chance, but they were still in playoff contention here in week 17. And then we got the news yesterday, and I talked about it on the live stream yesterday about how the Broncos, with financial implications in mind, are pulling the plug on Wilson. We'll start Jarrett Stidham against the Chargers. Very winnable game, especially with Wilson. And then they have the Raiders next week. So there's still a chance. If the Broncos would have won these 2 games and they would have been favored in both, stranger things have happened, right? And you play, obviously, not to echo Herm Edwards, you play to win the game, right? That's what all players and all coaches, that's the mantra that you fall under when it comes to suiting up and putting on a headset in the NFL. But Sean Payton took a shit all over that with this decision, for lack of a better term. And you talk about somebody who's even more unlikable than Russell Wilson, and it's probably by a sizable chunk, it's Sean Payton. The guy is just a complete ass. First of all, in terms of all of the shenanigans he's had over, I get it, he's an accomplished coach. But the Bountygate scandal, trying to lie about it, trashing, the Jets offensive coordinator, you're basically violating every tenet of the coaching, unofficial code of honor. Basically, you don't criticize another coach. And the way he's acted this season, the way he's treated Russell Wilson, I'm sure you guys saw it a couple of weeks ago where he absolutely eviscerated Wilson with the cameras in showing every detail of his tantrum as he really got in Wilson's face. It was an ugly scene, and Wilson, to his credit, just stood there and took it. And that's what he should do. Any player that gets dressed down by his coach, I don't care how highly paid you are, albeit I'm a high school coach, but the player should never talk back to a coach. I don't care what level it is. And Wilson didn't do that. So he deserved credit for that, even though Payton, I thought it was a little over the top. And he's been, dropping not so subtle hints about how much he dislikes Wilson and the contract. And let's face it, the contract that Wilson got from the Broncos is ridiculous. I mean, there's nothing short of ridiculous, that contract. And with that in mind, saving potentially up to $37 million, because if Wilson wound up getting hurt, he's got all this guaranteed money next year. But if he would have gotten hurt, it would have been impossible for them to void the contract. You can't do that with an injured player, and it would have had implications beyond 2024. So that's why they made this move. And Wilson came out late yesterday, and said he expects to get cut. So there's a lot of, dominoes that fell with this. Specifically, right off the top, the Denver Broncos are going to be one of those teams that are in the market for a quarterback in the offseason. Whether they sign somebody, trade for somebody, invest draft capital in a very deep quarterback class this season, that remains to be seen. Wilson, will be looking for a new team. And I'll say this right now. The hot rumor all along with Bill Belichick is that he's going to Washington, and never for the life of me, I couldn't understand it, because Sam Howell, I think he is a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's not up to the standards that Bill Belichick is going to be looking for with this is probably his last opportunity to coach. However, if the Commanders sign Wilson, let's say to a 2-year deal, right? Or even a 3-year deal, then the Belichick marriage with Washington seems much more plausible. All right? I can totally see that. And you have weapons here. You have Terry McLaurin. You have a pass-catching tight end in Logan Thomas. You have an emerging Jahan Dotson. You have, albeit the defense needs to be rebuilt, but you have some players on that defensive line. You have Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, and even this Rodriguez kid at running back. So you have weapons here. So Wilson could step in, and if he plays as well as he's played this year, because again, he's played really well this year, not far from his Seattle performance, albeit less running, that could work. So right off the bat, you have to think Washington would be a possible destination for Russell Wilson if, in fact, Bill Belichick goes there. I could see that working. All right? The second issue aside is Wilson was done wrong completely here. I don't think there's any question about it. Again, how you feel about Russell Wilson, that is a separate issue. I'm not a fan of his, but he was done completely wrong by this organization and by Sean Payton. And how about the Denver Bronco locker room? The veteran players in that locker room, what must they be thinking right now? Because clearly they're not trying to win these games by putting Jarrett Stidham in the lineup. The most optimum way to do this, and this is what drives me crazy, is that Peyton had the balls to step up there in front of the media yesterday and said that he's looking for a spark. What do you mean you're looking for a spark? You have a guy with a 26-8 touchdown interception ratio who has brought this team back from the dead after that disgusting humiliation against the Miami Dolphins, the 70 plus points in that game, and had this team in position to claim a playoff spot. So if you're in that Broncos locker room, you have to be beside yourself that this took place. It is an absolute disgrace what happened here. I mean, it's just, there's no other description for it. I mean, Wilson, Sean Payton, I mean, it seemed like it was just not going to work from the beginning with the two of them. But again, they were winning games. They, 6% chance to make the playoffs. They still had a chance. And coaches will tell you, even if there's a 1% chance, you go as hard as you can until that's exhausted. And that is not what happened here. That is not what's happened here at all. So just an ugly situation. Yeah, and, it actually turns Wilson into a sympathetic figure in this whole situation. It really does. And it makes Peyton look like more of an ass than he already is. I'm sorry. That's just a fact. Tonight, Cleveland, New York Jets. We talked about Amari Cooper, his situation up in the air as far as his health. If he does sit out, it's going to be a lot of David Njoku. And David Njoku's had a nice season, folks. He really has. 75 catches, 748 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's been a tight end one for the duration, basically the entire second half of the season. So really, really good season for him. Now, for the Jets, you're playing Breece Hall. But Garrett Wilson, this one, I have some skin in the game when it comes to Garrett Wilson. So tonight, he's my wide receiver 3 because I have CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson in the one league that I'm in the championship game. But I have Tyler Lockett on the bench. I have Wilson in there. His over-under yardage right now, I believe, is 41 yards, which is very low. I think they're going to force feed the ball to him. They might take a page out of the Baltimore Ravens playbook like they did with Zay Flowers last week and just throw a lot of short dump-off screen passes and just let Wilson create, because that's the only way they're going to be able to generate anything against the Browns in terms of the passing game. This is the number one defense in the entire NFL in terms of giving up points to fantasy points to wide receivers. So it's going to be very rough sledding for Garrett Wilson tonight, I should say. But I think I'm still starting him over Tyler Lockett. I have Isaiah Pacheco in my flex spot right now. If he doesn't clear concussion protocol, I could put Lockett in there. We'll just have to see. Now, also last night, I talked about it on the stream, Ramondre Stevenson on IR now. Officially, his season's over, so he goes down as a very, very significant draft bust, one among many at the running back position. And Ezekiel Elliott back in play now, and I have him in the lineup alongside James Conner for championship week. While he hasn't run the ball well the last couple of weeks, he's getting a ton of dump-offs, a lot of work in the passing game. Bailey Zappi targeting him a lot underneath, and it has worked. You know, he's had 2 big games in the last 3 weeks on the strength of the passing game. You know, it's possible they sprinkle in some of the younger guys, but I think Elliott is that veteran guy that they want Zappi to depend on. Zappi's played fairly well since he's become the starter as well. But this team, they're still going to be looking for a quarterback as well. That's another team you could throw in there for the quarterback situation in terms of the draft. So we'll just have to see that. By the way, guys, if you're new to the channel, you're new to this podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And also you could become a member by hitting the join button on the homepage. 3 different plans. I believe it's bronze, silver, and gold. The gold plan, you get a free draft guide delivered via PDF format. So whichever one you choose, you can choose the NFL prospect draft guide, which comes out in a couple of months, or the fantasy football draft guide, which comes out sometime in March or April. And so, make sure you check that out as well. But live stream's always going to be free. There's definitely, there's some perks from being a member. You get primary access to all, your comments. Sometimes the videos, you get early access to videos, things like that. And then there will be, once a week, a members only chat where you can, basically ask me whatever you want with a lot less competition, a lot less comments for me to wade through during a regular stream. But the regular scheduled streams that I've always done, those are always going to remain free. Now, I wanted to get to the all-value team. So we're going to be doing draft busts. Going to be doing, and I did discuss draft bust yesterday, actually. So it's the all-value team and the all-pro team for 2023 fantasy football that we're going to be doing over the course of the next week or so. And I've compiled the all-value team. Now, the all-value team, couple of qualifications. They all of these guys who made this list are either late round picks or not even drafted at all. All right. And some of these guys were mid-round picks who wound up morphing into top-tier players. Just a few, but the majority of guys on this list were either not drafted or drafted very late, okay? And they have supplied the biggest bang for the draft bucks, so to speak. And also, they remained healthy into the playoffs, right? Some of these guys who I thought could be worthy of this team didn't make it health-wise, like Tank Dell, Keenan Allen. They didn't make it to the end point, so I excluded them from the list. But they would have certainly been here on this list if they had stayed healthy. Now, the quarterbacks. I picked 3 quarterbacks for the all-value team, and it's really interesting because, the big 3 have all come through. Pat Mahomes less so, but Allen and Hurts more than justified their drafts. But they're 1-2 right now in fantasy points. But the middle tier of the quarterback position was very disappointing. And even that third tier as well. Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields to a certain extent. Joe Burrow got hurt. It's just a lot of disappointment there. But these 3 guys who make the all-value team were proved that you don't need to draft a quarterback heavily. They're all top 10 guys as we speak right now. And 2 of the 3 are not runners because we talked all offseason, you need to get a running quarterback. And I was all in on that as well. I drafted Allen, I drafted Hurts. But it hasn't exactly materialized based on these 3 guys, 2 of them being in the top 10. And the first name is Brock Purdy. All right, Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant in the NFL draft, who's actually the Mr. Irrelevant in one of my fantasy drafts. He's QB5 going into tonight. Now, I know he's coming off an ugly game against the Ravens. He was drafted as QB19. All right, so Brock Purdy, QB19, was drafted. Right now, he's QB5. Excuse me. And his stats: 29 touchdown passes, 11 interceptions, 4,050 yards. Tremendous numbers. Was in the MVP running up until that Baltimore game. But that, again, the draft value was immense. Second name on this list, Jordan Love. QB6 right now, so one spot behind Purdy. He was drafted QB26. So in other words, not even drafted in a lot of leagues. It's a 12-team league that took a starter, in a one quarterback league, took a starter and a backup. Jordan Love wasn't drafted. But right now, he's QB6, 27 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 2 fewer than Purdy, 3,587 yards, over 200 yards rushing. So he's running. He's the only quarterback of these three that on this list that made the All Value team that's a runner. All right? There was some rocky moments early on, but Jordan Love has come through. He is legit. The Packers have their quarterback. All right? Accuracy's a little off, but he's the guy. And then finally, how about this? Baker Mayfield, QB10. He was drafted QB31, undrafted again in fantasy. He was drafted as QB31. Nobody was in on this. 26 touchdown passes, 8 interceptions. He's got fewer interceptions than Brock Purdy and Jordan Love. And only 3 fewer touchdown passes than Purdy, 3,598 yards. Now, he doesn't run, so less of an impact than Jordan Love. So he's QB10 as opposed to Love being QB6. But Baker Mayfield's having a tremendous season. Last year, it was the Seattle Seahawks with Geno Smith. We were all afraid of the Seahawks because of Geno, but who wound up having a major Pro Bowl caliber season. Lifted up Tyler Lockett, lifted up DK Metcalf. Baker Mayfield, we were all avoiding this situation. I myself avoided Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. I wound up trading for Mike Evans, which turned out great. It was actually a deal that helped both teams. They traded Alvin Kamara for Mike Evans. So it was a deal that helped both of us. But Baker Mayfield, tremendous season. Things are coming together for him now. I think he realizes, whether he was undisciplined earlier in his career off the field, who knows? His wife is pregnant. Maybe he's settling down now. I don't know, but he is a different player for sure this season. All right, the running back. These 3 running backs were all drafted in the dead zone or later. As a matter of fact, 2 of these running backs were either not drafted or drafted very late. One was a clear dead zone. All right? And it goes to show you, with all of the draft busts at the running back position this season, right at the top with Austin Eckler and Nick Chubb, and the disappointing season from Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, Aaron Jones, just so many of these top guys, it goes to show you, continue with the strategy of drafting wide receivers early and then finding value at running back. Raheem Mostert, running back 2. He might be, along with Puka Nacua, the best value hands down in fantasy football. Mostert currently running back 2. He was drafted running back 41. 1,012 yards, 18 touchdowns on the ground. Just ridiculous. At the age of 31. 25 catches, 175, 3 more scores. 21 total touchdowns. That's just insane. Rachaad White, running back 3. Dead zone back. 873 yards on the ground, 6 TDs. 56, 507.3 in the passing game, drafted as running back 24. Tremendous season. And he, too, didn't start out great. And he's under 4 yards per carry. I think he's at 3.7. So he's not really running it well. It reminds me of Najee Harris the last year of Ben Roethlisberger with the Steelers. The sub 4 yard average, but a lot of catches and making good on opportunities around the goal line to score touchdowns. And then finally, Kyren Williams, he's running back 9 only because he missed time, whereas the other 2 didn't. He was drafted running back 81. 1,057 yards, 9 TDs on the ground, 30, 192, and 3 touchdown catches. That's insane. Running back 81. So this guy killed it. Absolutely killed it. Shocked by this. All right, wide receivers. I took 6 wide receivers here. All right, I wanted to double up the amount of running backs. And Puka Nacua obviously is the head of this list. All right, he's wide receiver 7 right now. He was drafted wide receiver 101. So him and Mostert, they're the 2 biggest guys on this list in terms of the disparity of where they were drafted and where they currently reside fantasy-wise. So wide receiver 7, drafted wide receiver 101, 96 catches, 1,327 yards, 5 TDs. And imagine if he had even a few more touchdowns, how much higher on this list he would be. All right, Michael Pittman, wide receiver 11 right now. He was drafted wide receiver 33. 99 catches, 1,062 yards, 4 TDs. Missed last week with a concussion. Faded him everywhere. Wasn't sure what to make of this Colts passing attack with Anthony Richardson, with his question marks of accuracy and pure passing acumen coming into his NFL career. But Michael Pittman has proven to be quarterback proof, for sure. Rashee Rice, right now wide receiver 25, and that's only because he wasn't trusted by the coaching staff. Snap share didn't get above 60% until 2/3 of the way into the season, but he has been right there as one of the best receivers in fantasy the last month. 74 catches, 811 yards, 7 TDs. He has a nose for the end zone. Wide receiver 68, he was drafted. All right, Nico Collins, wide receiver 19 right now. 64 catches, 1,022 yards, 7 TDs, was drafted wide receiver 58. We saw signs of it last year. Had field stretching ability, but just didn't have a quarterback to get him the ball. Now he has that with C.J. Stroud. All right, good old Mike Evans. He's wide receiver 6. He was drafted wide receiver 32 because of the Baker Mayfield concerns there. 73 catches, 1,163 yards, 13 touchdowns. Just unbelievable numbers for a guy who, again, is over 1,000 yards to begin his NFL career. I think it's, 9 seasons now? It's just one of the most remarkable statistical numbers I've ever seen in any sport. And he doesn't get the credit he deserves. And then finally, DJ Moore, he's wide receiver 10, drafted wide receiver 20, so not a huge stretch, but still value. 83 catches, 1,141 yards, 7 TDs. He's been very solid as the number 1 wide out there. All right, finally, tight end. Sam Laporta, easy call. He's tight end 3. Drafted as tight end 18, 74 catches, 776 yards, 9 TDs. And how about this? Trey McBride, who's tight end 8 right now, he was drafted tight end 35, 72 catches, 743 yards, 2 touchdowns. So other than the touchdown number, his per game pace is better than Sam Laporta. Because don't forget, Zach Ertz was the starter for the first month plus of the season, whereas Laporta was the guy early on. It took McBride, up to 8 games to find his footing. And he's only 2 catches behind Laporta, a handful of yards. And yes, there's 7 touchdowns separating the two. But it just goes to show you how big of a season Trey McBride has had. And I think I'm more inclined to draft Trey McBride because Laporta is going to be cost more. And they're comparable players. All right? So when you have comparable players like this, you take the cheaper guy. That's just basic draft strategy to maximize value of players. Because you can't tell me that Sam Laporta is that much better a player than Trey McBride, or that Jared Goff is that much better a quarterback than Kyler Murray. It'll be interesting to see what does happen with Murray in Arizona. I mean, do they let him go? What happens there during the offseasons? We'll have to see there. But yeah, Trey McBride, huge season for sure. So we'll have to. So that's the all value team, guys. Post in the comments what you think. I always like to hear your thoughts. Obviously keep it clean, and you guys have been really good. I've said this before. I could count on one hand the amount of comments I've had to remove. You get the troll, the obvious troll once in a while. I've had to ban one person since I started the channel. Actually, it was 2. One last year, one this year. So I consider that good. Social media can be a cesspool of negativity. We all know that. But this audience has been really, really good. I appreciate all your support, as always. So, yeah, we have to see some injury updates today. Isaiah Pacheco, is he going to clear the concussion protocol? I would not run out and start Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think Jerick McKinnon, it eats a little bit too much for me to trust Edwards-Helaire, who just doesn't do much as a runner anyway. All the Miami Dolphin key offensive players did not practice yesterday. Is Jalen Waddle going to be able to go with that high ankle sprain? Is Trevor Lawrence going to be able to go with a shoulder sprain? His high ankle sprain, who knows what's going to happen there. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that later on today. So make sure you have that notification button so when any new videos that are added, you could be notified of that. Not sure about a live stream today. I will be obviously having one tomorrow for Football Friday, so make sure you check that out. Already hard at work on my NFL prospects draft guide. That's going to be coming out in another month or so make sure you look for that. Until then, guys, I will see you later.